Hello and welcome back to Game of Trades, your #1 channel for videos on the stock market and cryptocurrencies. This is going to be a quick update on Bitcoin. I posted a video yesterday right before we had this major move down here. I filmed the video on this slow grind up on Bitcoin here, heading into that resistance at 53K. And between the moment that I filmed the video and posted it, we had this huge rise in volatility here. A massive 20% drop, very rapid. So we're going to talk about that. We had quite a few people in the comment section beginning to panic on this move down, talking about the fact that Bitcoin is collapsing here. A lot of people are not able to stomach this kind of volatility. So that's the aim of this video. We're going to talk about what happened here. Does it damage the bullish thesis? So I'm going to be going through a few charts in this video that will hopefully give you guys the information that you need in order to make the right decisions on this asset. Now, without further ado, let's get right into it. All right, so a quick word on what happened with Bitcoin here. We were obviously grinding up here, building divergence slowly. If you watched our two last videos on Bitcoin, we talked about these divergences between the price that was rising and the RSI coming down here, making lower highs as the price is making higher highs here and heading into that resistance, right? So that's a bearish technical setup. We talked about it in the last video. I don't want to say that we, predicted this move down, but any trader, any investor watching this type of setup should have expected some type of volatility, some type of correction. That's 100% to be expected. During an uptrend, you get moves up, you get counter corrections, and then the uptrend continues. So we're going to talk about whether this affects any of that, of course. Now, what I am really happy about is that these trend lines that I have on this chart are working like magic. Look at this. We've been watching these trend lines ever since this top here, where we were able to get these two reactions and identify this channel that's actually been working throughout the past 3-4 years here. It acted as support on this move down here throughout the summer, and we were watching this line here for a resistance level at 53K. This is what we've been talking about, and that is exactly what happened. Bitcoin tagged that level, rejected. Nothing particularly alarming here. That's a technical correction with an overextension of the trend. Hits divergence, you get a correction. For now, that's all that is. Bitcoin is not collapsing, Bitcoin is correcting. All right, so let's zoom back. Can we see any type of similar price action on Bitcoin in November? I believe that's going to be the title of the video, just because of how similar those setups are. Look at this 20% drop here that we had, a very rapid drop, slow grinding up to the top. Bitcoin tags resistance and then makes a rapid 20% drop here. Now, another channel that I show you guys in one of the past videos was this one right here, this log scale channel, capturing these reaction lows here, the bottom of the March 2020 correction, this reaction here in September 2020, and then this one here in July. We spotted that trend line on that reaction, and you'll notice we have a middle range on this channel here acting as resistance, right? It acted as resistance here and in November, and it acted as resistance here. Price grinded just below it until eventually it rejected off of it. Now, you get these types of large, violent moves down because Bitcoin has a lot of leverage. There's a huge amount of leverage in Bitcoin. It's an asset that goes up dramatically. So you accumulate greed very quickly. You accumulate margin very quickly in that type of environment. And so you have to have these periods where you shake out that leverage, and that creates those violent moves down. For now, again, that's not a particularly worrying development. Now, could we see further correction? Absolutely. Just look at this chart. In my eyes, Bitcoin remains bullish as long as we remain in this price channel here. We have very strong reactions. So we could see a move back down to 40K. That's the worst possible scenario in my eyes. 40K and then a big bounce. That's not my preferred scenario right now, but if you're a long-term investor in Bitcoin, if you're looking for long-term price appreciation on this asset, which is what you should be doing, not focusing on these short-term moves, but focusing on what Bitcoin is going to be 5, 10 years from now. Digitalization of value. That's what we need to be focusing on, not a shakeout in leverage. But despite that huge long-term bullish case, you have to be able to sustain these types of moves down if that occurs. Now, while we weren't so confident about the short-term outlook for Bitcoin heading into that resistance, right as we were approaching 53K and building that divergence, our convictions to buy new Bitcoins was very low. In fact, on our Game of Trades ratings here on Bitcoin, our short-term conviction was a hold as Bitcoin was approaching that big zone of that's supposed to say resistance at 53K and building that bearish divergence. Now, all of that has been cleared. We hit that resistance. We worked off those overextended conditions. That's a healthy correction, and we're probably going to put our short-term rating on Bitcoin back to a buy here, depending on what we get heading into the end of the week. By the way, if you want access to these posts, we do make these every week covering our personal convictions on all assets in the short, intermediate, and longer term, and exactly the reasons why. That's going to give you the assets we're interested in as long-term investment ideas and exactly when to be entering them shorter term and to take advantage of swing trades and intermediate term trends. This is so much value in just one post. We go through different sectors of the S&P 500, Bitcoin, Ethereum, precious metals, and recently a few members asked us to add the small caps and altcoins, so we added those recently as well. Bitcoin is an asset that we believe in very, very strongly from a long-term investment standpoint, and that's one of our goals at Game of Trades, is to give you guys the right mindset to approach this asset and take advantage of it properly and to take advantage of it as much as possible. Now, another big chart that's contributing to Bitcoin's bullish case is the total supply held by long-term holders. This is a very important chart to be watching here because this is what determines bull and bear markets, right? It's the amount of supply that's being held by smart money. And the fascinating thing about Bitcoin is that with on-chain data, anybody can actually have access to this information. Usually in the stock market and on other assets, that's a very, very difficult thing to analyze. How much long-term holders, how much smart money is actually holding that asset and not selling it, because that's what eventually creates a rise in price. That's how price dynamics work. You initially get a lot of supply being held by a very few people, and that begins to put upwards pressure on the price. Those smart monies begin to sell their positions here. You can see that's what happened throughout this rally here on Bitcoin. And during the euphoria, that's when the retail investors step back in. So you're going to quickly understand where I'm getting at here. This period here, a lot of Bitcoins were held by long-term holders that corresponded to this period right here in September, October, November 2020, and that's what created this massive rise in the price. Now you can see what happened here with this supply held by long-term holders throughout this period of accumulation here. All the long-term holders have held throughout this period, and we're now back to all-time highs. This increases the odds of seeing a supply squeeze and rising price action over the next few months. Now, again, you need to be prepared for short-term volatility, but in general, this is a bullish picture. Now, I want to show you a few more charts. That highlight why Bitcoin is in a similar technical and macro situation to what it was in November. Now, this is the Bitcoin dominance chart. It's a chart we've taken a look at before, and it basically measures how much Bitcoin is worth as a percentage of the total crypto market cap. And this is a very, very important chart to watch because it explains a lot of the dynamics behind the price action, and the relationship between Bitcoin and the rest of the crypto market cap is something that we've been watching, observing very, very carefully over the past few months. Now, the first thing to say is obviously that Bitcoin dominance respects these trend lines that I've highlighted on this chart perfectly. I'm just going to clean up this chart so that you guys can see this very clearly. The most important reactions to watch are these ones right here from December 2016 and March 2017, leading up right to this point here in January 2021. If you remember this very specific date. This is exactly when alt season started back in 2021, 1st of March. If you were in Bitcoin back in this area, you'll know that Bitcoin outperformed here throughout the end of summer and heading into the end of the year. And then on the 1st of January, almost by magic, you had the beginning of alt season, and that's when you started to see Ethereum, Cardano, Polkadot, all these other coins, Doge coins towards the end of the alt season really begin to take off. And so this is a powerful tool to take advantage of if you really want to be taking advantage of cryptocurrencies. This is something we cover a lot on our website at Game of Trades, because I do believe that this is probably the most important tool to look at to properly invest in Bitcoin. And so you can see what happened on the Bitcoin dominance throughout September, October here. You had a rise in the Bitcoin dominance, and then all of a sudden you had a mini alt season here with the Bitcoin dominance dropping very rapidly. You had Ethereum, Cardano, all of these coins exploding relative to Bitcoin. And I'm just going to put Bitcoin on top so that you can actually see exactly what's happening here. So this is the first rise of Bitcoin throughout September and October. You can see here these red and green candles. That's the Bitcoin dominance. So you see Bitcoin rise and the Bitcoin dominance rise. And then as we reach that top, as we near that resistance on Bitcoin before the November drop, that's when you see this mini alt season occur. That's when you see the Bitcoin dominance drop throughout this period, throughout this topping pattern between the 17th of November and the 24th of November. And when did that mini alt season come to an end? When Bitcoin gave up the ghost and dropped here. And that was a 20% drop, and the Bitcoin dominance bottomed. And from that moment on, you had the Bitcoin dominance trend back up to its highs heading into January 2021. And you can see in 2020 and 2021, we've had a similar type of situation. So the Bitcoin dominance has been rallying here. You had that first big move up in Bitcoin. Then as Bitcoin was building these divergences and making that top, you had the Bitcoin dominance drop, the altcoins rally. Obviously, that was also fueled by NFTs and the entire marketplace blowing up. But you had this mini alt season that I believe just came to an end here following this 20% drop. We now have the Bitcoin dominance at support. This is a strong level of support here corresponding to these reactions right there, very strong reactions. So we're going to see what happens. Real alt seasons on cryptocurrencies don't happen unless Bitcoin is trading at all-time highs. So that's why I believe that we're going to see a strong performance of Bitcoin here over the next couple of months as Bitcoin heads back to its all-time high before eventually getting that final alt season for the final show here. Now, that's about all I wanted to cover in this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to smash that like button as hard as you can. Now, in the meantime, I wish you good luck on your trading and see you next time.